I've got a edge message for you today, and it's really, I hope, to help you understand how to get more from yourself. We've got a very difficult world out there now that we live in. I was saying that we have a leadership crisis, as I call it. I don't mean a crisis where you have to dial 911 and get no answer, but we have a world today where I believe one of the greatest resources that we need to be producing and reproducing, and that is our ability to lead first ourselves and then others. We've failed in that area. So if I were to ask you how many of you would follow yourself, you don't have to answer that question, but think about that. Who in here would follow your own leadership? Who would marry another person like you if you had two of you? Would you marry that second person? Would you be a great boss to another person like you? Would you be a great friend to someone just like you? Those are very difficult questions to answer. Most people, without thinking, would naturally say, yes, I follow myself. Because the thought is, who would follow me if I don't follow myself? Well, let me ask you, where did you learn to be the person that you are? Where did you learn to be the leader that you are today? When I'm with leaders of companies or individuals, I'm usually starting my sessions with them by asking these rhetorical questions, and I'm not looking for answers. I'm looking to get them to think. Uncommon people that I've learned are very different from us, very different in some very meaningful ways, and I want to share some of that with you today. And I'll get started by sharing a little bit of my background. I'm retired from our military a little bit over 12 years ago. And I'll never forget going to my boss on the day that I decided to retire. I was working for a general officer at the time. And I went to him and I explained to him that I felt like it was time for me to retire. I thought he was going to send me away the way a teacher would send away a student and have them to redo his homework. Because my boss looked at me and he thought I was crazy and said, Alan, why would you retire? Why would you throw away a career that you've worked so hard to develop? I'd had a great career. I'd been promoted every time you would get promoted, and actually been promoted early several times. And so we had reached the retirement eligibility age. I say we, but Janice and I as a team. But I wasn't as old as a retiring person should have been because I'd had a great career. And my boss thought that I could become the next general of the Army. I had a lot going for me in my future, so he thought. But I knew deep down inside of me that there was something more, that I had a calling to do. And I also knew that it wasn't necessarily in our military. Actually, I felt like the higher up I went as a military officer, the less I could be the person that I knew I needed to be. I had this sensing at the time that I would be standing in front of people, much like you, talking to people, much like you, about leadership and things of that nature. It wasn't a business plan that I had written out. It was just a feeling. But the higher up in the military hierarchy that I went, the more that feeling, that passion would start to burn. And so I went to my boss and I explained to him that I felt like we needed to retire. And after some weeks of working with him and trying to get him to realize that I was serious, I put my papers in, prayed that they would go through the military hierarchy without anyone noticing it, and they came back approved. I say all that to say, I spent 23 and a half years in the military. I am one of 13 children, next to the youngest. I've had quite a bit of examples in my life, good and bad, of people leading well, leading poorly. And I've learned that what makes uncommon people different from us, from you and I, is not so much that they have skills that we don't have. It's not so much that they've got connections that we don't have. It is some things that happen in their lives, in their closets, when they're home, things that happen before they even leave home. Those are the things that make them different. Those are the things that makes them uncommon. And I want to share a little bit of that with you today. I saw these types of people in my brothers and sisters, and when I joined the military, I saw those types of people as well. And for 23 and a half years, I worked with very, very, very great leaders. I was blessed to have the kind of career that most people would just dream of, but I was lucky. As I looked back on things, I saw that there was this common thread of what made uncommon people different from you and I knew that I wanted to be something like that. So let me just start to just tell you there are 6 things that I see that makes us different. Now, I'll apologize right up front. These will not be the common kinds of things that you would hear if you're sitting in a leadership class and I asked you, so what is a great quality of a leader? Most people would say things like visionary, communicate, integrity, honesty, all those kinds of things, very common. I consider those nothing more than being human. If you don't have it, well, I won't say that, but if you're not honest, to me, that is a function of being human. It's something that distinguishes you from any other animal. So there's a little bit more to it than those very basic traits and characteristics that we usually try to define leadership. If I had a doctor standing here and a pilot here, perhaps a construction worker behind me, and I asked you to pick out who was who, you'd do that by looking at the way they were dressed. The construction worker probably would have a hard hat. Perhaps the doctor, he might have a stethoscope. Over here, the pilot might wear his captain's hat. What would a leader wear? How would you recognize a leader if they were standing before you? It's difficult, isn't it? This is why we have a crisis today. Our leaders look no different than the people that they're leading, and that's wrong. They talk no differently from the people that they're leading. That's a problem. They're seeking the same things that you and I are seeking. That too is a problem. Leaders are called to be different in better ways, simply because they're leading you and I. So our leader can't be at the same place that those of us that they're leading are at. That's not wholesome for us. They've got to be a little bit better than we are. They shouldn't dress the same way. They shouldn't walk the same way. They shouldn't be facing the same challenges that we're facing. Leaders have overcome those basic kinds of things that you and I are struggling with every day. And when they haven't, what happens is that they are operating at a level that I call a limit, their limit. So if a leader is standing on the 10th rung of a ladder, and that ladder has 25 rungs, but because of my limit, I'm only able to get beyond the 10th rung or to the 10th rung, everyone around me is limited by my limitation. That is why our leaders need to be a little bit better than we are. If I'm operating at a limit, whatever that might be, my family cannot get beyond that limit. As a husband, when I operate within my limits, my wife cannot get beyond that limit. As a CEO of a company, when you operate at your limits, your company is limited by you. If you're standing on the 15th rung as the leader and you can't move any higher, you are holding everyone else around you down to that 15th rung. Now, great people, there are some out there, will see a situation like that, knowing that they can get higher, they will do things to move around. Let me give you a nugget. Strong leaders do not make weak people. Strong leaders do not make weak people. Weak people will be attracted to a weak leader. But when you have a weak leader and weak people, then you have weak organizations, weak families, weak relationships. So I looked at all these things, and I saw many of these kinds of things as I progressed through the military, the weak and the strong, and I saw these 6 areas of discipline that I refer to them that made great people different from us. The first of those is a strong perspective. Uncommon people, people who are very successful, have a very, very strong perspective. It's different from yours and mine. Okay? Very different. They have a perspective that says their lives start with purpose rather than with desires. There's a saying that your life follows your thoughts. Strong people have the kinds of thoughts that lead to great lives. Not just with you when you're in the office, but those great lives appear anywhere. So this first discipline that I see in strong, uncommon people is this idea of having a very, very solid perspective. That's your foundation. If you have a sloppy perspective, we usually can see a sloppy life following that. On top of perspective, the next discipline is preparation. To be able to, preparation is a little bit different from just getting an education. I like to think of it as the ability to be prepared to do what your skills say you shouldn't be able to do today. To do what your skills say you shouldn't be able to do. To be prepared to accomplish what others simply think of or dream of. Preparation helps you to do that. But it only helps because you've got that solid foundation in your perspective. On top of preparation then comes what I call way with people. In layman's terms, it would be leadership style. But I call it a way with people because as a leader or as a person, life is nothing but a daily interaction between you and someone else. So I call it your way with people because that's really what it is. A great person will have a way with people that will get beyond traditional ways of describing leadership would be to influence. You probably have heard that. Well, I think that if you've got a great way with people, you'll get beyond even influence. You'll start to win people. People will be drawn to you. People will associate with you and with who you are and with what you think when you have a great way with people. You see, most of us today look at our styles, by the way, and there are 2 things that are wrong or associated with styles. A leader's style has to be fitting for the people that he or she is leading, and it also has to be fitting for the circumstances that they face. So there's really 2 things. You have a way with the people, and then you have a way with the situation. And those 2 things might require you to have 3 or 4 different styles and different approaches. I've got 4 sons. 4 sons who might say that I'm a different dad for each one of them. But that is because they are different. I have a different way with son number 1 than I do with son number 2, than I do with son number 3, than I do with my Mr. Forte, our youngest. I call him Mr. Forte because he's decided that he's going to be the ruler of our family one day. And I hope that that will not happen before I die. But a great person, excuse me, will have a way with people that is appropriate for each person, and they will have a way with the situation that is appropriate for the situation. Those two things are usually not going to be the same. Uncommon people have figured this out. Uncommon people understand that it's almost natural to them to see this connection. On top of your way with people, that third discipline, there is what I call courage of decision making. I was a little conflicted with this because courage can be one thing, decision making can be another. But I began to see that courage and decision making are really, really connected together. So I call it courage of decision making. Now, folks, let me tell you, courage is the kind of thing that you have to have before you need it. Because if someone threw a grenade here, you would have only 7 seconds for me to decide what to do if I'm closer to it. You don't want me panicking and wondering at that time if I've got the courage to act and to move on something. Courage has to be in you before the situation requires it. And because of that, it has a great connection on your ability to make great decisions. You can leave here today making better decisions if you just did one thing and one thing only. And that is if you learn to depersonalize the decisions that you make in your life. You don't understand. So, if you are married and you have a spouse, you make decisions that are in the best interest of your spouse, never yourself. That's what I mean by depersonalizing it. If you're the CEO of a company, you make the decision to make your people better. You make the decision to make your customers better. That is probably what will lead to making your company better. And it will make a healthy financial company then a byproduct. If you can learn to depersonalize your decisions, you'll leave here today a better decision maker. You don't have to follow the 5-step process for sorting through decisions and looking at options and alternatives and all those things. No, that's okay, but it's simpler than that. Just have the courage to remove yourself from the decision. You should feel comfortable enough about yourself anyway that you don't have to worry about you. Courage and decision making. On top of that, we get closer to the top where there's results, but on top of courage and decision making is the one that gets us the most, and that is teamwork and team play. It's both. Teamwork is whether or not I will choose to help. Team play is whether or not I will do that in a selfless way. Uncommon people have an incredible DNA about being team players. That is the place where you will see just how selfless they are. It's the place where you'll see just how selfless you are, whether or not you will play as a member of a team. And then on top of that discipline, the fifth, is the one that we want the most, which is results, and I usually refer to that as excellence in results. And it sits on top. It's the place where we want to start everything, especially if we're in a company. We're setting goals because we want results. And so we want to start there, but we don't understand that to achieve consistent results, even as a company, you've got to start with a business that has a perspective that's sound. A business that has the preparation to do the things that you're going to want to do as far as achieving goals. A business that has a way with people that draws customers and people to it. A business that has the courage to make decisions that are impersonal for the business. A business that as a team can team with its environment, with its community. Those are the businesses. that can achieve consistent excellence in results. These are the things, people, that I see in uncommon people every day. They're very different from us. And you don't hear these kinds of things in classes. You don't see them written in books. And if I had asked you this question, if you were in one of my seminars, neither of you would have said, oh, the greatest quality of a leader would be their perspective. Because we don't look at it that way. The world has made us view these things in a short-term mode. The world has made us to see leadership, whether it's someone leading you or you leading others, as something that you do. But it's not that at all. It's more basic than that. Leading is something that you are. And because it's something that you are a person of sound perspective. I like to think that perspective itself has a life. And so it comes knocking on your door. You look through the peephole and you see perspective standing on your porch. And you're wondering if I should open the door or not. But you do. You open the door, perspective introduces himself or herself, and she says to you, I want to come in because there's some work I'd like to do with you. Now, you start to think, should I do that or not? You see, those disciplines are not things that you can learn to do. They are things that happen to you. Perspective wants to come in and change your thinker. Preparation wants to come in and change the way you go about doing the things you do. A way with people wants to come in and change how you feel about people. The kinds of things that I see in uncommon people are things that bubble up from within. They can't be learned like you would learn to cast a vision. These are the kinds of things that have to happen to you before they're seen in you. The reason you couldn't recognize a leader if he stood here by the way he was dressed is because you'd have to look from the inside out. Okay? Many years ago, I was minding my own business, as I say it, working in the Pentagon, and my boss came to me and he said, Alan, I'd like for you to play golf with a friend of mine later on that week. Well, I was excited about that. I love playing golf, and I was going to get a day out of the office. That would be great, too. Didn't bother to ask him who was his friend. I went home and started getting ready to play some golf that week. Thursday of that week, we meet at Congressional Golf Courses right outside Washington, D.C., and I can see when this guy drives up in a sleek black limo. Actually, someone drove him up. I thought, uh-oh, this is not good, because he's an important person. He didn't even drive himself there. Okay, but he shows up. He gets out of the car, and I think, oh, that's not good. He's a Marine Corps general. It's really bad, folks. Really bad. So he comes over and he introduces himself. He shakes my hands, and by the time he's done, my fingers are about together, and he's so strong about his handshake, and I thought, this is not going to be good. He goes inside, he gets changed, he comes back out, he says to me, okay, sports, so I was only a captain at the time, if you know anything about the military. So he comes out to me, he says, okay, sport, let's get started. Where do we start? I said, well, sir, you need golf clubs. We're going to play golf. You got to have some golf clubs. Well, I thought you did that. Well, no, sir, I play golf left-handed, so I didn't think to get your golf clubs, but I can do that. So I go and I get him a set of golf clubs. And now I'm really thinking, I'm going to play golf with the Marine Corps general. I hope he's played golf before. We're on congressional golf course, all the Congress, and get it, important people. So we tee off on the first tee, and he hits a ball, and it goes way left. We hop in the cart, we go down, we look for it for a few minutes, can't find it. I just throw one on the ground, said, hit that one. So he hits that. We play that hole, and we get to about hole number 3. I'll never forget. He takes and he tees off, he hits a ball, and we never saw it. I think it went backwards. He was just that bad. He was just that bad. So I tee off. Now, I'm left-handed, remember, I told you that, so I'm not a bad golfer. I'm not great, but I'm not bad. I can keep my balls on the golf course, and they'll be around the holes where you're supposed to be at the end of the round. So I hit my ball, and it was close to the green. He looks at me, and he says, well, I can't say that. Well, I can't say what he was saying. He looks at me, and he says out loud, this game is not that hard. And I said, no, sir, it's not. He takes his club, he hits it across his knee, he breaks it in half. We drive down to the green. We're just going to play my ball because we can't find his. We put 2 balls, and we actually put them in the hole. And now we're going to the next hole. And I think I have to do something to take his mind off golf, because we've got 14 more holes to go, and I can't imagine 14 more holes with him. He only has 14 clubs. So if he breaks a club per hole, that's not going to be great. So I asked him, sir, how long does it take to make a Marine? He put on the brakes on the golf cart, almost threw me out. He looked at me and he said, Captain, people join the Marines, but they have to choose to become Marines. People join the Marines, but the best folks have to choose to become Marines. What he was saying to me was something about perspective. You see? A lot of us join things, but do we choose to become those things? A lot of us are probably in leadership positions today, but have we chosen to be a leader? A lot of us will get married tomorrow, the next day, but have we chosen to be a great spouse? A lot of us have children, but have we chosen to be a great father? You see, from that moment on, this general started talking to me about what it took to differentiate a guy who raises his right hand and says, I do want to join the Marines, and that person who never needed to raise his hand, but only did it because we had to take the oath. But that person who said, I am a Marine. It was a perspective that they took into things. And he started to share with me how different those 2 types of soldiers, Marines, were. I found myself glued to this man for the next 14 holes, listening to everything that he told me about leading myself. And in so many ways, he pointed out to me, his favorite question was, have you? Have you decided this, young captain? Have you decided that, young captain? So I spent the remainder of the day soaking in a great time with this Marine Corps general. He taught me that perspective, the type of perspective that I'm challenging you to achieve, comes when you decide that you want to live the kind of life that starts with who you are, which leads to what you know, which then gives you as a byproduct the things you do. But now the world would say to you, do more. It's an indication that you know more. And the more you do, the more you know. If you're lucky, you'll be something. Folks, that's a crime. Life's not that way. You've got to choose, if I could, to live your life with who you are right in the middle of your crosshair. What you know then becomes a function of who you are. So the things that you know have a purpose that comes from who you are. than the things that you do are more focused. When you know who you are as a person, when you know who you are as a leader, the knowledge that you seek and you acquire is purpose-based knowledge. It isn't just knowledge for the sake of knowledge. It is knowledge to help you to fulfill who you are. You're getting up every day going to do something, going to work or whatever it might be, to teach, whatever that is. But it is because you are more than a teacher. It is who you are. You can't stay home because you wouldn't be fulfilling the person that you are. So your knowledge becomes knowledge based on the purpose that you have in the person that you are. And because that knowledge is so finite, so focused, so clear, the things that you do them with more success. When you live a be, no, do life rather than a do, no, be life. Okay? Uncommon people, uncommonly successful people see this in that way. They may not be able to explain it the way I have, but they see it that way. There's a high school principal in New York City, took over a school and inner city, and she had to transform the school, really. And there's a story of her and the custodian going to one of the boys' bathrooms. And as they approach the bathroom from the outside, they can smell the stench of urine emanating from the bathroom. The custodian, before he even gets to the door, says to her, "There's 10 years of urine in the floor, in the concrete. It won't come out." She goes in. She tells him to get her a bucket of hot water, some soap, and a brush, removes her jacket, sits on the floor. He comes back, gives her what she's asked for. She starts to scrub. 3 hours later, the custodian returns. As he's approaching the bathroom, he smells. Can't smell anything. He walks in. Principal is still sitting there on the floor, scrubbing away. She looks up at him and she says, "Smell anything?" He says, "No, nothing at all." Then it does come out, doesn't it? Let me tell you, when you are the kind of person that focuses on what you do, your problems will ultimately get the best of you. See, the custodian was challenged with a problem that his skills and that problem had met, and they were at a standoff. He could not achieve any more with that problem than what he had done. What he had decided to start doing was making the dirt clean. Okay. But that wasn't sufficient for that high school principal. She was a B person. She was a purpose-focused person. And she said to herself, "A mop may not do it, but elbow grease will. I'll clean this." So let me ask you, would you rather work for somebody who's in charge or someone who's charged with? See, when I'm in charge, that means you're not. I'm going to dictate your life. But when I'm charged with, I'm accepting responsibility and accountability. That's a different thing. Would you rather work for someone who's in authority or under authority? Would you rather work for someone who teaches people to be leaders or teach you to be a follower? These are all the sound perspectives of people who are out there everywhere, who are very, very, very exceptional. We don't see them because you're not looking in the right places. You're looking at outcomes. You're looking at results, when you should be looking at the kinds of things that they do to achieve those outcomes and to achieve those results. Okay. Would you rather work for someone who gets their satisfaction from getting to do something as opposed to having to do something? I get to be my wife's husband. That's pretty awesome. I don't have to be. but I get to be there. That's a grateful person. Perspective is really, really, really powerful for you. And you have to work on building that sound perspective, and I want to help you understand how to do that, if I could, really quickly. I told you I was military and spent a lot of time doing a lot of crazy things in 23 and a half years. In 1985, I believe, 86, Janice and I and two of our sons were in Berlin, Germany. At the time, the Soviet Union, East Germany, communism. Get it? Different world back then. We're there in what was West Berlin, 110 miles into East Germany. Okay? That was during the time that President Reagan came to Berlin, and he did the Gorbachev tear down this wall speech. Y'all remember that? At least you've heard of it? Okay. So I learned from that encounter with Reagan and all that went on there that he was a very special man. One of the kinds of people that I'm talking about today. If you ask yourself, where are all the great leaders, you'd struggle with that question. I don't want you to blurt out anything because I don't want to have to talk to you after this, but many times people would tell me the names of people that they think are great, and I have to scratch my head and think, we really do have a crisis because great people seemingly they're not out there anymore. But I met Reagan and during that time, and there's a story that even before he came to Berlin, he and Gorbachev, they're trying to figure out just how you can take a Soviet Union and a U.S., bring them together and end all this Cold War stuff. So I heard the story that Reagan and Gorbachev are meeting in Geneva, and the Soviet president is on one side of a table, and Reagan is on the other side of the table, and he looks across at it, and Reagan says to Gorbachev, people out there, they say that we're enemies, but we don't have to be what people say. People out there say we're enemies, but we don't have to be what people say. So let me finish with this, because you don't have to be what people say you are. You can start developing this purpose-based thing, life, as I'm referring to it, and getting to that perspective that will set you on. So I'm going to challenge you to do some things that uncommon people do and do well. Number one, I'll start by saying, be driven. Be driven by purpose, never by your desires. And learn to develop purpose in others. Excel at doing the things that other people won't do. The very things that others should do but won't do, you should do those things. T, transform. Transform your way of thinking from common to uncommon. There's more success there. E, execute. Execute with precision. Anything that you're asked to do, do it and do it well. Okay. R, remain focused. Don't let little things distract you from being successful. M, master. Master what you have to be, know, and do for others before you do that for yourself. I is for insight, wisdom. Learn to develop insight and wisdom that will carry you further than just your knowledge. And never give up. A is for accountability. Invest in others, another I. They'll give you the return. And the last one. And never allow the fear of being successful to cause you to give up on the success that you should have for others. This is the type of determination that you should have. It isn't determination to get a thing done as much as it is determination to be something for someone else. I want to thank you for your time and thank you for coming out today. I appreciate that. God bless you all.